In this video, we are going to build an AI scheduling voice agent that can book appointments, reschedule them, or cancel them. We will use Vapi for the voice agent, and we will connect it with n8n, which will handle all the scheduling logic. We will connect this entire system with your Google Calendar, so you can actually use this system for your real-life projects. And this will be a step-by-step tutorial, so we are going to go through each steps. I'm going to show you how to set up Vapi, n8n. We are going to build each workflows manually. So I will explain every step, making sure that you will understand everything. And if you don't want to follow along the video, that's also totally fine. I will share the Vapi prompt and also the workflows in my resource hub, which will be inside my Skool community. I will share the link in the description below and also in the comment section. And if you don't know me, my name is Tamás. I own an AI agency focusing on AI voice agents, automation systems, and all kinds of AI related custom solutions. So in case you need a custom system, feel free to get in touch with me. Before we start building it, let me show you a quick demo.
Hello, this is Lisa. How can I help you today?
Hi Lisa, I want to book a new appointment.
To help you book a new appointment, may I have your full name, please?
It's Thomas White.
Thank you, Thomas. What date and time are you looking to book your appointment for?
Do you have any free slots on Monday?
We have the following slots available next Monday, 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m., and 12 p.m. Which one works best for you?
12 p.m. sounds good.
All right, I'll book you in for 12 p.m. on Monday, September 1st. May I please have your email address?
It's test@gmail.com.
Your appointment is confirmed for Monday, September 1st at 12 p.m., Thomas.
As you can see, it booked the appointment at 12 p.m. It got my email and it also has my name. And if I open the Google Sheets, you will see the exact details of the appointment. This is where we will keep the appointments because we need to save the appointment ID in order to reschedule the appointment or cancel it. And we also have the email. And we also have the phone number. In this case, we don't have it because I called it from web. But if someone calls it from their cell phone, it will also populate the phone number in this field. So you can also send confirmation messages. So I would say, let's get started. I'm going to open Vapi and I'm going to create a new assistant. And what you need to do here is click on Create Assistant. I'm going to call it Lisa and keep the blank template. And we can just click on Create Assistant. Once you have that, let's provide a first message. I'm going to say, hello, this is Lisa. How can I help you? So this will be the first message that the assistant will say when they pick up the phone. And here we also need to provide a system prompt. I'm just going to paste the system prompt that I already created. If you want, you can pause the video and copy the entire prompt. But I will also share this in my Skool community where you can find all the resources for this video. So what we are going to do with this voice agent is when you call it and you say that you want a new appointment, it's going to get our full name and it will ask for the preferred time. Once it has the preferred time, it's going to trigger the check availability tool that we are going to create soon. And after you check the availability, it's going to list the top 3 slots that it received from the tool's response. And if the user doesn't like any of the appointments, they can negotiate a new time. Otherwise, it's going to gather some more information, such as the user's email, and it will use this email to book the appointment. And if the user wants to reschedule an appointment, it will ask for the last name. It's going to look up the last name that is connected to the appointment. And this is one reason why we need to store the appointment details in Google Sheets or any other database, because we need to locate the appointment somehow. And in this case, I'm going to use the last name, but you can also locate it with other data such as birth date. And once it retrieves the appointment, it's going to ask for a preferred time again, and then trigger the check availability tool. And once it retrieves the appointments, it's going to trigger the reschedule appointment tool. And for canceling appointments, it's very similar. It's going to ask for the last name to locate the appointment. And once it has the appointment, it's going to ask if you want to cancel this appointment. If you say yes, it's going to cancel it. It will be deleted from the database and it will also delete the calendar event from Google Calendar. So this is the logic that Vapi will follow. I'm going to click on Publish and I'm going to keep the GPT-4o cluster because we need to persist some information. For example, when you retrieve the appointments, it will get the appointment ID. And later in the conversation, we need to send this appointment ID back to n8n, which will be used to reschedule the appointment or cancel it. So we need to persist some kind of data, and I recommend using a more smarter model. Otherwise, if it's just a simple conversation, I would use GPT-4o mini, which is the fastest model. But I'm going to keep GPT-4o cluster. And if I go to the transcriber, I'm going to switch to Nova 3, which is the latest model. And I recommend turning on background denoising in case there's some background noise. So let's click on publish. And for the voice, you can use a Vapi voice, which are really good. But what I recommend is using an 11 Labs voice. So if you go to 11 Labs voice library, this is a very good place to browse high quality voices. For example, if you want to have an English voice agent, you can just search for the languages and you can select any kind of accent. So if you want to have a British voice agent, you can select British. And I like to select conversational. And if you apply filters, you will see the voices. Once you find a good one, what you need to do is click on these three dots, copy voice ID, and go back to Vapi. And I'm going to switch the provider to 11 Labs. And you can click on add voice ID manually, and I'm just going to paste the voice ID that I copied from 11 Labs. And then we can click on publish. And now your voice agent is using that voice. So I recommend browsing 11 Labs a little bit. They have very high quality voices and you can also customize them. So if you go to additional configuration, you can adjust the stability, clarity, also the speed, and you need to experiment with it to be perfect. In this video, I'm not going to focus on making the voice agent perfect. Our point is set up a complete system because voice agent is very specific for different kind of businesses. So to get started, let's open n8n. And I already have the workflows, but I'm going to develop everything from scratch. So what I'm going to do is click on create workflow. And let's start with the AI agent that we are going to use in n8n. So I'm going to call it demo appointment agent. And this will be the main workflow that the Vapi voice agent will trigger. So the first thing we are going to add here is a webhook. So I'm going to look for a webhook. And let's switch the HTTP method to post. And let's also switch the respond to using respond to webhook node. And now we can click on save. And let's also add the webhook response node. And now we can click on save again and let's activate the workflow. So let's go back to Vapi and I'm going to create our first tool, which will be the check availability tool. So let's go to the left side and click on tools. And here we can click on create tool. Let's select custom tool. And I'm going to give a name to the tool, which will be check availability. And I'm going to provide a description, which will be this tool is responsible for checking availability for the user's preferred time for the appointment. Trigger this when the user wants to book a new appointment or reschedule to check for available slots. And once we have that, let's scroll down a little bit. And we are going to add one parameter here, which will be the preferred time. And let's also add a description, which will be the preferred time the user wants to book an appointment for. Example, next Monday, next week, or 1st of November. And I'm going to make this required, so it will always ask it before proceeding. And before we click on save, we need to provide the server URL. And to get that, let's go back to n8n. And let's switch this to production URL, and let's copy this. And we can paste it in the server URL field. And once you have that, let's click on apply here. And let's also click on save for the tool. And now we have the check availability tool. We also need to add this tool to the voice agent. So let's go back here and click on tools. And we need to select the tools and click on check availability. Then we can click on publish. And to test it out, I'm going to click on chat and say that I want to schedule a new appointment. It's going to ask for our name. I'm going to say next Monday. And as you can see, it called the check availability tool. So if I go back to n8n and I click on the executions, you will see that it triggered this tool successfully. So now we can start building our functionality in n8n. If I click on it, you will see that it has all the information, for example, check availability tool name and the preferred time, which is next Monday. So the first thing I'm going to do here is close this, and I'm going to add an AI agent between these two nodes. You can select AI agent, and first you need to provide a chat model. If you have an OpenAI account, you can select OpenAI, and obviously you need to authenticate your account. If you don't have an OpenAI account, you can go to platform.openai.com. You need to add some credits to your account, and once you have that, you can go to your profile and click on API keys, and here you can create your secret key. And once you have that, you can go back to n8n and just paste your key here, and then your OpenAI account will be authenticated. So after you have that, I'm going to switch the model to GPT-4 Turbo because we need some brain power for this. And what I'm also going to do is add the prompt for the AI agent. So I'm going to select this, and I'm going to switch this to define below. And I'm going to open this up. And I already have the prompt. I'm not going to write everything by hand. So I'm just going to paste this. And again, if you want, you can pause the video, but I will also share this in my resource hub in my Skool community. So you can see that we have all the actions defined here. We have date handling, output, and I also provided all the variables to the AI agent that is coming from Vapi. So it's going to fill some very important fields when we will book the appointment, reschedule, or cancel them. So once you have that, let's close this and let's click on save. And the next thing we want to do here is create the check availability workflow. So what I'm going to do is go back and create a new workflow. And I'm going to call this demo check availability. And let's add the first step. Let's add when executed by another workflow. You want to use this when this workflow will be executed from another workflow that is inside n8n. And at the previous workflow, we used the webhook because that is executed by a third-party service. In our case, it was Vapi. So the first thing we need to do here is define some parameters because we want to pass some information to this workflow. And in this case, we want to pass the start time and the end time. And between these days, it will check for the free slots. So if someone says next week, it's going to take the beginning of Monday and the end of Friday for the end time. So let's add them. For the name, let's say start time. And it's going to be a string. And let's add another one, which will be the end time. And it will also be a string. And if you don't know, string is basically means text. So if you go here, you can select different things. For example, number, boolean is true or false. An array is a list. So let's close this. We can click on save. And the next thing we are going to do is integrate your calendar. And we are going to use cal.com to make it because their API is much better than Google Calendar's native API. So what we are going to do is go to cal.com and you need to create an account here. I'm just going to go to Go App. And once you registered here, you need to create an event type. And when you have that, you need to click on settings and go to API keys. And let's create a new API key. So this will be used to authenticate your account in n8n. So I'm going to click on add and let's give a name. I'm going to call it n8n and click on save. And let's copy this API key. And now we can go back to n8n and let's add an HTTP request node. And let's add the authentication method. So I'm going to select generic credential type and click on header out. And I'm going to create a new credential. Let's call it cal. And for the name, let's add authorization. And for the value, let's say bearer, space, and paste in your API key. And once you have that, you can click on save. And now we can start putting together the request. So what we are going to do is go to cal API docs. And here we need to look for slots. And what we need here is get available slots for an event type. So before you can use this, you need to connect your Cal account with Google Calendar. And when you create a new account, it will ask for the option to do that. So don't forget to do it. And once you have that, we can copy the URL here it will be a GET request. So let's go back to n8n and we can scroll down here and let's enable send query parameters. And here we need to provide the parameters that is required. We need to provide the start and end time, and these are exactly the values that we passed into our workflow. But before we do that, let's provide the header, which will be the Cal API version. So let's copy this and let's select send headers and paste it in for the name. And the value will be this 2024 September 4th. So once we have that, we can start sending the query parameters. Let's scroll down. We will need the start. And here we will pass in the values that we will receive from the first node. So I'm going to execute this and I'm just going to pull these in. And let's add another one, which will be the end. So we can also pull this. And I'm also going to provide some additional properties, which will be the event type ID. So let's copy this. And we need to provide our event type ID. So if you go back to Cal and go to, these are your event types. So if you open one of them, you will see your ID here. And this will need it to identify which event it needs to book. So let's go back to n8n and paste it here. And I'm also going to provide the duration. I'm not sure if this is needed because the event type already has the duration, but I'm going to provide it anyway. This will be 30 minutes. And I'm also going to provide the time zone, which is Europe, Amsterdam in my case. So now I can try it out. So I'm going to provide some random values here. For example, this can be this. Let's set it to September. And for the end time, let's say 13th of September. So now I'm going to click on execute workflow. And you can see that it's successfully executed and it will retrieve all the free slots that is in my calendar between these two dates. So now we can click on close. Let's click on save and let's go back to the demo appointment agent. And here we need to connect this workflow. So let's click on tool. And I'm going to select Call n8n workflow tool. And here you can select your workflow. What I created is the demo check availability. And we can just fill in these values with AI. And I'm also going to provide a description to this tool. So this way we let the AI agent know when it needs to call this tool. So let's say this tool will check for available time slots and return their start time. And now we can close this. Let's click on save. And I'm also going to rename this workflow just to make it nicer. This will be the check availability. And before we try it out, we need to configure the respond to webhook node. So I'm going to switch this to JSON and I'm going to paste in the JSON that it needs. So this is how it will look like. We need the result and I'm going to close this and switch to expression. And let's also execute the previous nodes. I need to pin some data to be able to execute it. So I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And it will be pinned now. So I'm going to click on execute workflow. You can see that it checks for availability and it will successfully send back the data to Vapi. So what we did here is I need to provide the tool call ID, which is coming from the webhook. This is how it identifies which tool the request relates to. And for the result, I'm sending back the result that OpenAI generated with the AI agent. We have some JavaScript methods here. And what this does is it removes all the line breaks. And if you don't do this, it will run into issues. So you can pause the video and just copy this. And once you have that, let's click on save. And let's add the book appointment workflow. So like we did for check availability, I'm going to add a new workflow inside n8n. And let's call this demo book appointment. The first node will be when executed by another workflow. And here we are also going to provide some fields. The first one will be appointment start time. The second is the first name. We need to provide the last name. Let's also add the phone number and the email. And once you have that, we can close this, click on save, and let's add an HTTP request node. This will call the Cal API that will book the appointment. So let's select this and let's go back to the Cal documentation. And here we need to find the bookings. And under the bookings, what we need to have is create a booking. So here we can copy this URL and it will be a post request. So we can go back to n8n, switch this to post and paste in the URL. Let's also select the authentication, which will be generic credential type. Let's select header out and let's select Cal. And once you have that, let's open up headers and let's check what we need to provide here. We also need to provide the Cal API version. And this will be this date. And let's open up send body. And I'm going to select using JSON. And I'm just going to paste in the fields. So we will need to have the start date, the attendee, which will be the caller. You can see that we provide the name, phone number, email. It also needs a metadata. We are not going to provide anything here. And we need to add the event type ID that you can find in the URL for your event type here. So once we have that, I'm going to close this. And what we need to do is testing it out. So I'm going to provide some test fields that we can use. We have an appointment start time, first name, last name, and the email. So now we can click on execute workflow. Let's see if it works. It seems like it worked. So I booked an appointment for September 11. So I'm just going to go back to my calendar and check if it worked. Yes, you can see that it worked. So now we can use all this response to save this appointment into our Google Sheets. So this is how your Google Sheets should look like. You need to have an appointment ID and all the values that we use for booking the appointment. We need to add the Google Sheets note here. And let's select Append Row in Sheets. You need to authenticate your Google account. And let's also select your document and also the sheet. And here we need to drag in the values that we received from booking the appointment. For example, for the appointment ID, we will need the UID. Be careful because it's not the ID, you need the UID. For the first name, let's scroll down. And I'm going to use the value from the first node in this workflow. For the last name as well. The date will be coming from the HTTP request node, and it will be the start date. And let's also drag the phone number and the email. So now if I open the HTTP request node and pin it, so it won't be executed again, then now I can click on execute workflow and it will save the appointment details into a Google Sheet. So you can see that it was successfully saved. And with that, we have the appointment booking workflow. So let's click on save. And what we need is the reschedule appointment, getting the existing appointment, and the cancel appointment workflow. So let's do getting the appointment. For that, we need to go back to the demo appointment agent workflow. And I'm going to add the tool here, which will be a Google Sheet node. And let's select our Google Sheet. And I'm going to add the tool description, which will be this tool will retrieve existing appointment for the user. And let's scroll down and add the filter, and we will use this field to identify the appointment. So I'm going to select last name, and I'm going to click on let the model define, but to make sure it works, I'm going to add the description, which will be the last name of the caller. So let's make sure that it works. I'm going to click on save, and I'm also going to rename this. It's a good practice to give a name to your tools. So I'm going to add the name, which will be get appointment. And let's open up the webhook. I'm going to overwrite this tool call. I'm going to say that the function name is get appointment. And the parameter will be last name. And I'm going to provide Farago. So now if I click on execute workflow, it should trigger this node, and it should retrieve my appointments. And as you can see, it found my appointment. It will be September 11, 7 a.m. So if I go back, as you can see, that we need to provide a time zone offset. So with this, we make sure that it will book the appointment in the correct time. You can see that I have +2 on the first one, and I don't have that in the second one because I booked that manually. So if I go back to n8n, let's click on save. Now I see that I forgot to add the book appointment tool. So let's select call n8n workflow tool. And here we can select demo book appointment. And let's provide a description, which will be this tool will be responsible for booking a new appointment in the calendar. And we need to pass the values. For all of them, I'm going to let the model define what to pass. But for the appointment start time, I'm going to add the description, and I'm going to say that please apply an offset like this. And I'm going to provide an example date, which will be this date. And you can see that I added +2. So the way you know that is you can go back to Cal, and let's go to settings, and let's go to general. And here you can see your time zone. So if you open it up, I can see that my time zone is Europe, Amsterdam +2. So for example, if you're from New York, you would select -4, and it would apply this time zone offset to your date. So it will show the correct date in your Google Calendar, and it will also save it correctly in Google Sheets. So once you had that, you added the time zone offset. I can close this, and let's rename this. I'm going to call it book appointment. I'm going to adjust these a little bit to make some space. And now we can click on save. And the next thing we need to do is create the reschedule tool. So let's go back and create a new workflow. Let's call it demo reschedule. Let's add the first step, which will be when executed by another workflow. And let's provide some fields. The first one will be the appointment ID. And let's add another one, which will be the appointment date. Let's close this. And the next thing we need to add is HTTP request node. And before we fill these in, let's go back to the Cal API documentation, and let's go to reschedule booking. And here, let's also copy this URL. It will be a post request. So let's go back to n8n. Let's switch this to post. And let's provide the URL. And don't forget to switch this to expression because we need to pass the booking ID here. So to do that, I'm going to execute the previous node, and I'm going to drag the appointment ID here. And once you have that, you need to select your authentication method again. Let's select generic credential type, header out, and let's select Cal. Let's also enable the headers, which will be the Cal API version. And for the value, let's copy this. We are also going to send body. So let's enable this. And we only need one parameter, which will be the start time, which will be the new start time for the appointment. and we can just drag this value from the first node. And once you have that, we can close this, and to test it out, I'm going to open this and get the appointment ID from here. So we are going to reschedule this appointment. And I'm going to provide a new appointment date, which will be this value. And I'm going to provide September 2nd. So let's see what happens. It looks like it was successful. So we reschedule the appointment, and I'm going to pin this data so we don't have to call it again. And the next thing we need to do is update the database. So let's add the Google Sheet node. And I'm going to select get row in sheet. And let's select your Google Sheet. And the reason we need to get the row first before we update it is that we need to know the row number where the appointment is located. So in this case, it will be 3, but I need to know that in order to update the proper appointment. So to get that, let's add a filter, and I'm going to select appointment ID. And for the value, I'm going to drag in the appointment ID that is coming from the when executed by another node. So now if I go to execute step, it retrieved the appointment record that I have in the database. So now I can use the row number to override these fields. So the next thing we need to do is add another Google Sheets node. And here let's select update row in sheet. Let's select the document and also the sheet. And for the column to match on, I'm going to select row number. And here let's drag in the row number that is coming from the previous node. And for the appointment ID, let's drag in the field that is coming from the HTTP request node, and it will be the UID. For the first name, I can drag in the field that is coming from here. Last name 2. The date will be a new date that is coming from the HTTP request. And the phone number and email will come from Google Sheet. So now that we have that, I can click on execute workflow. And as you can see, it updated the fields. So now we have this workflow as well. So we can click on save. And let's go back to the appointment agent and let's add it. So let's select Call n8n workflow tool. Let's select the demo reschedule flow. And I'm going to let the model define these values. And for the appointment date, I'm also going to say the exact thing I did for the book appointment to apply the offset. So we can just paste it here. And just to make sure that it applies the offset, I'm going to say it is crucial to apply the offset. And let's rename this tool, which will be reschedule appointment. And now we can close this and we can click on save. And the last workflow we need to add is cancel appointment. So let's create that one as well. Let's call it cancel appointment. And as usual, we need to select the first step, which will be when executed by another workflow. And for the field, I'm going to add appointment ID. And let's also add the HTTP request node, which will handle canceling the appointment. And let's look it up in the docs. We will need to cancel a booking. So let's copy this URL and it will be a post request. Let's select post and paste in the URL, switch this to expression. And I'm going to click on execute previous node and let's drag the booking ID here like this. And let's open up the sent headers. We also need to provide the Cal API version here. Like this. And let's open up the body. And let's check out what we need to provide. We need to provide a cancellation reason. the user requested to cancel. And before we close it, we need to add the authentication method, which will be the generic credential type and header. And as usual, you can select the cal. And now we can save this. And I'm going to get the appointment ID here and paste it in my n8n workflow. So to try it out, we can use this. And let's click on execute workflow. And it looks like it worked. It successfully canceled the appointment. So I'm going to pin this response. And what we need to do is delete the record from our database. So like we did for the reschedule appointment workflow, I'm going to add the Google Sheets node, which will get our existing record. So let's select get rows in sheet. And for the filters, I'm going to select add filter and let's select the appointment ID. And this will come from the first node. So if I click on execute step, it should give me the record. And we have the row number that we are going to use to identify which record we need to delete from Google Sheets. So let's add the Google Sheets node. And I'm going to select delete rows or columns from sheet. And let's also select the document and the sheet. And we need to define which row it should delete. So I'm going to drag in the row number here. And we need to delete one row. So if I click on execute workflow, it should delete this whole row. And let's test it out. And it looks like it worked. We canceled the appointment completely. We don't have it in our database and also in our Google Calendar. Don't forget to click on save. And there's one more thing we need to do, which is add this workflow to our appointment agent. So I'm going to click on tool, call n8n workflow tool, and let's select demo cancel appointment. Let's let the model define the appointment ID. And to the description, I'm going to say this tool will cancel the appointment. And let's also give a name. So let's click on rename, cancel appointment. To try it out, we need to go back to Vapi and create the rest of the tools. So currently we only have the check availability and we need to create each tools. So next let's click on create tool and add a custom tool. And this will be the book appointment. And let's provide a description, which will be this tool's purpose is to book a selected appointment for the user. And let's provide some parameters. So let's set the new property. And the first one will be the email. This is the email of the user. I'm going to make it required. And let's click on apply. Let's add a new one, which will be the last name. The last name of the user. Let's also select required. And let's add the first name. The first name of the user. Let's click on apply. And the last one will be the appointment time. And for the description, let's add the time of the appointment the user wants to book an appointment at. And let's also select required. And once you have that, we need to fill in the server URL field, and let's get the URL from n8n. And now we can click on save. Let's create another tool for getting the appointment. So I'm going to call this get appointment. And to the description, let's add this tool will retrieve the user's existing appointment from the database. You have to trigger this before rescheduling and canceling an appointment to retrieve the appointment ID. And once you have that, let's scroll down and let's add a property. And the only property we need to send is last name. And this will be the last name of the user. So this is the last name of the user. And I'm going to set it required, click apply. And one thing we need to do is provide the server URL. So let's copy this, paste it. And we have this tool as well. We need to create two more tools, which is the reschedule tool and the cancel appointment tool. So let's add the reschedule one. Reschedule appointment, which will be this tool's purpose is to reschedule an appointment for the user. Let's scroll down, let's add some parameters, add the appointment ID, and for the description, let's add this is the ID of the appointment the user wants to reschedule. You will get this from the get appointment tools response. And let's set it as required and click on apply. And let's add another property, which will be the appointment date. And for the description, let's add, this is the date of the new appointment. And I'm going to provide an example format, which will be 2025, September 1st, like this. And I'm also going to add that you need to use the new selected appointment here. Don't proceed without having it. And let's set the required and let's click on apply and also get the server URL. And now we can click on save. And there's one more tool that we need to add, which is the cancel appointment. So let's click on create tool, custom tool. Let's call it cancel appointment. This tool's purpose is to cancel an existing appointment for the user. And let's scroll down. For the parameter, we need to provide the appointment ID. And to the description, I'm going to say this is the ID that is related to the appointment. You need to send this with the tool in order to cancel an appointment. And let's select required and apply. And again, let's provide the server URL. And once you have that, you can click on save. And now we can go back to the assistant and let's add all these tools to the assistant. So I'm going to select book appointment, get availability, reschedule, and cancel. And once we have that, we can click on publish. And let's test it out by clicking on chat. So first, let's book a new appointment. So let's start with schedule. Let's provide our name. And let's say Monday. Okay, it gave us some slots. It offered the 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. spot, which is free. So that's good. I'm going to select 9 a.m. Email address. Yes, it's correct. Yes, it can use my phone number. And it should book the appointment. So let's see if it works. Okay, it looks like it worked. Let's see in the calendar. And we also have it in Google Sheet. So let's try to reschedule this. I'm going to go back to Vapi and restart the conversation and say I want to reschedule. Let's provide the last name. Okay, it got the appointment. It asks for the new preferred time. I'm going to say Wednesday. checking for availability, and it offered me the 2 p.m. to 30 p.m. slots and 3 p.m. Yeah, it looks like it's correct. So I'm going to select 3 p.m. It looks like there were some issues. So let's try to figure out what was it. You can go to the executions. And it looks like it didn't trigger the reschedule appointment flow. So let's open this up. Maybe we forgot to provide a description here. This tool's purpose is to reschedule an existing appointment. Let's try it out. So let's say, please try again. Okay, it looks like it worked. So let's go back to the calendar, and it successfully rescheduled it to 3 p.m. But it looks like it didn't adjust the date. So let's see what was the issue. So if I open this up, I can see the value it provided. And it looks like it provided the correct value. So I'm going to go in the reschedule appointment workflow, which was the demo reschedule. And let's see what happened here. Update drawing sheet. It looks like the date was good. And what we need to do is open the update drawing sheet, and we need to use the value that is coming from when executed by another workflow, because it looks like Cal retrieves as the UTC time, which is not adjusted by the time zone. So what we can do is update row in sheet and delete this field, and let's update the date from the appointment date that is coming from the first node. So we will always have the correct date in the database. And what I'm going to do is open up this and update everything manually. So update this. And the appointment date was 3 p.m. And I'm going to provide the offset. So now I can click on execute workflow. So you can see that it has 3 p.m. now. So let's go back to Vapi. Go back and let's try to cancel it. So let's say I want to cancel. Let's say the last name. Yes, it found us the appointment. Yes, let's cancel it. Okay, it looks like it worked. We don't have it in our calendar, and also it removed it from Google Sheet. And because Cal gives us the UTC date, I'm also going to go back to the book appointment workflow. And I'm going to switch the date to come from the first node, which will be the appointment start time. And I'm going to click on save. And let's try it out again. So let's restart the chat and let's say schedule. Also, I'm going to provide my name and let's say Wednesday. And let's select 3 p.m. Let's provide the email address. Yes, it's correct. Let's use the phone number. Okay, it looks like it worked. It booked it. And let's see what we have in Google Sheets. And now we have the time with the correct time zone offset. So everything works. And this was it. Now we have a full scheduling system that can book appointment, reschedule them or cancel them and it is all connected with Google Calendar, so you can use it in your real projects or sell it to other businesses. I will share all the workflows and prompts in my resource hub. If you want to get it, join my Skool community. I will share the link in the description and also the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I will see you in the next video.